Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are more than honored to be sitting down with Ashton Wolfe. Ashton has been in the crypto and Bitcoin industry for many years now. He started off, I believe, in the Bitcoin ATM industry. And today he is founder of MohrWolfe, which is a leading communications firm in the blockchain space. Thank you for joining us today, Ashton.
Yeah, thank you, Justin.
So El Salvador in 2 weeks will become the first country to adopt Bitcoin as a national currency. No one generally knows what to expect. I would expect not a lot of change on the ground. I believe in these countries in Latin America, this type of change at the government level in particular is slow moving. I think that businesses, small businesses in particular, will be slow moving as well. And the main, I think, change that will come of this quickest will be a a understanding that at least Bitcoin exists among the population there. People will become introduced to Bitcoin and then later on other cryptocurrencies. They might even become introduced to the ideas that underpinned Bitcoin, such as kind of the classical liberal economic ideas or the skeptical of fiat currency and central banking nature of some of Satoshi's, I guess, writings, particularly in the source code with the reference to the January 3rd bailouts. What are your thoughts on El Salvador, Ashton?
From what you said, I thought that they had already adopted it as legal tender.
Yeah, they passed the bill, but they're going to be implementing the bill in September.
So what does that mean for them to implement the bill when merchants are already accepting it?
So I think then it will become law for merchants to essentially accept it via, if they choose,
like through their POS systems and whatnot.
Yeah, I believe the government is planning on providing a POS system that will allow consumers to pay in Bitcoin and merchants to receive local currency, US dollars, which is the local currency there.
Yeah.
And this is similar to the BitPay model. So I believe that will become law. I don't think that it's going to be enforceable early on, nor do I think it should be enforced in any substantial manner.
Yeah, it definitely shouldn't be forced. That would go against the fundamentals of what Bitcoin is. You know, it's giving people the freedom to choose whichever currency they want to go with and offering them options. So I recently saw that, you know, like how are people going to obtain Bitcoin in El Salvador? So you mentioned, you know, you brought up my, you know, my history a bit with Bitcoin ATMs. And, you know, to this day, I still keep up to date with, you know, what's happening with Athena, what's happening with Bitcoin Depot. And I read an article the other day that narrated 300 new ATMs, or maybe 3,000 new ATMs are going to be planted into El Salvador when this law passes. And this obviously opens up the opportunity for people to buy and sell Bitcoin as ease of convenience. However, with my experience, you know, a lot of, you know, this is almost like a cash cow for the Bitcoin ATM guys. So, you know, Bitcoin Depot, they are the guys that are going to be planting these ATMs, and they're probably going to stick to just Bitcoin instead of opening up their software to alternate currencies like Ethereum, Dash, Monero, any of these other currencies that are also, you know, closest to the Bitcoin blockchain aside from Ethereum. You know, there, in my opinion, there are better solutions, but Bitcoin being the alpha and the number one in market cap, volume, everything, that it is, you know, it's going to be everybody's first option. I do think that there's a very lucrative opportunity for these Bitcoin ATM companies, though, because, you know, when I left back in 2017, you know, people were paying for convenience and didn't even realize it. There was a 25-30% buy fee on the current Bitcoin price, and nobody recognized that because they hid that in their backend. Nobody was price checking with any of the market cap websites because, you know, Coin Market Cap wasn't very relevant. CoinGecko wasn't even around. And I guess your best option was to look at Kraken or Bitfinex at the time, and you know, to compare prices, because on the Bitcoin ATM, it'll tell you price of today's Bitcoin, including their fee, but that's not what they'll tell you. So, I do think it is, a big step for crypto, especially with the US offering all of these bailouts. They're printing money left and right. I wouldn't consider it hyperinflation, but they are inflating more money than they have been in history. But I do personally think that it's not so good for the ecosystem of El Salvador if people are going to be, I'm going to use the term taxed, even though tax isn't the right term. They're gonna pay an extra fee
No,
just
it
to
is
buy
the right word.
Bitcoin and spend
It,
it.
it is the
Yeah,
right
like
word, Ashton. It's the exact right word.
yeah, like okay, so yeah, they're gonna be taxed when they're buying it, and of course with
And
adoption.
their taxes could go up depending on how much they paid for the Bitcoin Depot ATM. So my questions would be: Are now
Well, then they're subject to real taxes at that point. So I'm not very familiar with El Salvador's infrastructure in that case, but like, in the US, you have capital gains tax, you have income tax, and all of this goes with if you hold money in your Coinbase wallet, then you're going to end up paying tax with it because that is automatically reported by the, common reporting standard, the CRS. And with like they're paying a fee, plus they're probably paying a tax, but that fee and with adoption, getting larger and larger by the year, maybe the fee has gone down. I haven't bought Bitcoin from an ATM since 2016, but I remember when I was operating right before I left, the company right before I left was struggling, and they decided to try to monetize off of the people who didn't know better. And, they were throwing down 24-25% fees on top of spot price. It was absurd. It was messed up, to be honest. And also unfair, especially when you're going into a developing country trying to help their economy and you're just taking their money. So what I'm very interested in seeing is, what do the fees look like at Bitcoin Depot's ATMs, as they're going to be the first movers into that country? And then, what is EasyBit going to do? What is Athena Bitcoin going to do when they move in there? Because it's free trade, it's free game. You can go in there. There's no exclusivity. There's none of that. Anybody can go. They can oversell. It's all free game. It's all free trade.
if the product of Bitcoin is financial freedom, then these companies should make a fee for providing these services. Now, of course, one must be sensitive to the market in El Salvador, which is much different than in the north, if you will. Now, let's read a little bit about Bitcoin Depot. Going into ATM, of course, El Salvador President Nayib Bukele has announced the country will install 200 Bitcoin ATMs as part of an effort to adopt the
200.
cryptocurrency as the official currency of the country. These ATMs will work alongside the government's cryptocurrency app Chivo. Now, the government is creating its own app in partnership with Strike. It's going to be released. It's framed
Is that
as a
Jack Mallers app?
It is indeed, I think, being built by Jack Mallers' company Strike, and it's being released as a way to ensure that everyone has access to these technologies, providing a government app so that perhaps businesses can easily roll this thing out, Bitcoin, as well as convert easily from Bitcoins to USD, because I think the government there is sensitive, at least the president is sensitive to that. People are going to need US dollars, the medium of exchange in the
Yeah,
country.
that's what most people are going to accept from here on out, because you're talking about a developing country that half of the people, have heard of Bitcoin, but for example, are like, if you ask them about Bitcoin or if they have any, they're going to tell you that they don't have any money to invest in it. They look at it as an investment, not a medium of exchange. And, I'm here in Southeast Asia. And yeah, of course, like I ask a lot of people, like, I'll joke around with the street food vendors that I go to, and I'll be like, "Hey, do you accept Bitcoin?" And they'll tell me that they don't have any money to buy any. Of course, with a lot of factors playing into effect, the COVID and everything, and a lot of the population here is struggling. But besides that, in a developing country, that's the number one, figure of speech or whatever you want to call it. Like that's what they're saying, is they don't have money to invest. They look at it as an investment. So man, don't even get me started about the fees. Like they're better off paying with the US dollar. I hate to say it, but fiat in a way is still better
Okay,
than,
so the
yeah.
crowd that is pushing Bitcoin in El Salvador is closely connected to Blockstream Labs and Lightning as well, and I believe that they are working on Lightning to ensure that fees stay low. The thesis on the Bitcoin side currently, this is, I think, kind of almost Bitcoin DeFi now, is that you can leverage Lightning in order to bring down the fees on Bitcoin to make it make sense to make most cryptocurrency transactions or most financial transactions. That the only 7 seconds, 7 transactions per second is actually a feature and not a bug, because it is a means for security and robustness on the Bitcoin system, and that they can take these transactions off chain and settle off chain. So that would, I think, be the counter that the crowd that is pushing Bitcoin only in El Salvador would make. Another thing I would say on the Bitcoin ATM front, only accepting Bitcoin, it does bring in a lot of technological complexity if you even bring in just Ethereum. So if you have a Bitcoin ATM and you're doing just Bitcoin cash in, cash out, and then add Ethereum on top of that, you've already added so much complexity, not to mention that you're going to have to make changes guaranteed as ETH2 gets rolled out. And I think that developers that have been connected to the Ethereum blockchain have experienced that in the past with some updates.
So Lightning Network, does it even exist? You know, they recently implemented in, what is it? No, what year was it? Hold on. So November 21, 2021, they're going to integrate Taproot into the Bitcoin network. And that is going to pretty much be an upgraded SegWit, segregated witness, that is going to help mitigate a lot of these fees. You know, back a couple years ago, Ethereum would have been a great alternative solution. I know when I was implementing new Bitcoin software into these ATMs, that, you know, they had alternative currencies, Dogecoin, Darkcoin, which is now Dash, Ethereum Classic. The problem is Ethereum's fees and gas fees are just way too high right now, and Bitcoin does look like a more attractive option. The problem is, like, I feel like in the Bitcoin ecosystem, there's a lot of false promises, or maybe there's just a lot of delays. You can't really say the same thing for Ethereum because nobody's putting any dates on ETH 2.0. For Bitcoin, everybody's talking about SegWit, everybody's talking about Lightning Network, but when is it actually going to come into effect? You know, there's less Bitcoin holders by what, 30% since 2018 on exchanges and wallets. And, you know, and it's not even because of fees, it's because there's better options out there. You know, again, it's a great foundation for these guys to start. And I think because there's a big knowledge gap, everybody has heard of Bitcoin. So everybody's going to go towards Bitcoin. And, you know, I'm a former Bitcoin maximalist. I started out with ATMs and I got into, you know, I look at 2017 DeFi, like decentralized finance is Ethereum and all these other dApps, right? You know, but I was still pro Bitcoin for the longest time, probably until 2020, until there were alternative solutions clear as day out there. But, you know, these are not going to be known in developing countries for a long, long time.
So that would be DeFi.
And
2020 is really the year of DeFi. And that's what kind of
yeah,
made you open your mind more to the possibilities outside of Bitcoin.
well, not really. So Justin, you and I met in what, 2017, and we were, you know, we were exposed to a lot of these different projects that were building on Ethereum. What makes them different than any of the current projects that are built considered DeFi now? You know, there really isn't much of a difference aside from, like, you
No,
know, we have
certainly.
staking and yield farming and whatnot, but
The ICOs were like theorizing about a future DeFi that didn't exist then, and then it became reality. And in many cases, those projects that which raised money during the ICOs had yet to deliver what they promised. So this, I guess, second breed kind of came in and began executing beyond the ICO in Ethereum, and that's where you get DeFi, which is being built on Ethereum. But then Ethereum has scaling issues just the same as Bitcoin in many ways. The developers are promising a fork on which they think everything will be scalable. Bitcoin developers, Bitcoin DeFi believing developers might argue that to pack everything into one package is lacks modularity, which might be a way, might be the term for decentralization when it comes to software engineering and infrastructure. And whereas on Bitcoin, they are pursuing a DeFi in which modularity will exist. Now, there will be a question of centralization. I think Bitcoin as it exists today already offers transaction batching where big institutions like Coinbase or maybe Strike can send transactions in batches, which then lowers the throughput on Bitcoin and can then be more efficient use of the blockchain space. However, then again, a question of centralization comes into play of how many institutions or actors will be then managing these batch transactions on the Bitcoin network. It might be only a few players, which then puts us into a kind of a centralized, perhaps even centrifugal. I think that might be where things kind of move towards the center. Funds and fees and riches kind of gravitate towards these few institutions, which it can be debated whether or not that is preferred. Some people would say, hey, we can build second layer blockchain technology on either Bitcoin or Ethereum. And
it's been done.
People can choose how decentralized they want that. Another thing I do want to say too is that Ethereum has kind of dual approaches going right now. They've got the Ethereum 2 project, as well as Polygon or Matic, formerly Matic, which is essentially like almost the Lightning version of for Ethereum smart contracts, or maybe an RSK would be a better analogy.
Yeah, like Polygon is the RSK of Bitcoin or of Ethereum, or however you want to put it. Yeah, that's a funny topic. I don't know if we should continue down the DeFi road.
That's because
DeFi
about El
is not
Salvador.
DeFi, it's CeFi, man. Yeah, it's
so this is where we're ending up now. Now we're kind of looking at like when we start looking at where DeFi is leading, just because Bitcoin's DeFi is going to have an element of centralization doesn't mean that the others, well, doesn't mean that we're not sure that the others won't too. Bitcoin DeFi might turn out centralized, but Ethereum's DeFi might end up centralized too, which then kind of leaves us at like, well,
Ethereum's DeFi can't, like Ethereum itself cannot. Bitcoin, in terms of
Uniswap,
the supply, like whoever owns the most,
Uniswap just pruned the tokens on their platform. They said that there were technical issues, I believe. So now, how is that DeFi if the developers are able to make that change? That's a debate to be had that I'm not looking to have right now, because that's a topic I haven't looked into enough. And you mentioned, let's get off DeFi. Let's go back to El Salvador. The government of the impoverished Central American nation aims to spend up to $75 million as part of a plan to hand out $30 to people who sign up for their e-wallet, the government's e-wallet called Chivo, or Cool. That's what
Roger
it's called
Ver
in English.
Must have been a big influence over there, giving out free Bitcoin, free Bcash.
That software-based system would allow an estimated 2.5 million Salvadorans to buy goods or pay for services in US dollars or Bitcoin.
That's the best stimulus package I've heard of yet. There's 1,200 US dollars, 800 US dollars going to the American people. I think $30 in Bitcoin. You know, if I want to go back to talking about, you know, if we're in 2015 and I'm like, hey, $30 in Bitcoin is a stim package, say if we're facing the same issues now, that's way better from a speculative point of view. Now, not so sure, but I still think at the end of the day, compared to fiat, I think that it is empowering because you are giving real ownership of real monetary value back to the people instead of something that is centrally controlled by the banks. And I'm not talking about supply.
You made me think of something that when you're mentioning like US dollar a Bitcoin bailout for America.
That would be cool.
And I think that made me think first and foremost about former President Donald Trump, whose Bitcoin policy is totally out of line with his followers. He doesn't know that. I don't think his there's
What was
totally
his
out of
Bitcoin
line.
policy?
Well, he is skeptical of Bitcoin. He wants to preserve U.S. dollar reserve currency status at all possible costs. I think a Bitcoin conciliatory policy does that. He thinks Bitcoin's a threat. Bitcoin actually is just perpetuating the philosophical foundations upon which this his country that he's defending, the U.S., is based upon, and therefore a soft stance towards Bitcoin to in contraposition to the CCP's probably more authoritarian stance towards Bitcoin would be a welcomed and bolstering policy for the US dollar. And so I brought up a quote. This is covered at goldsilverbitcoin.com, this story regarding
My favorite
a
blog.
panel at Bitcoin 2021 put on by Bitcoin Magazine, in which Senator Lummis of Wyoming, who is Bitcoin friendly, her son and daughter, no, I believe her maybe daughter and son-in-law, or son and daughter-in-law, turned her on to Bitcoin. She said at that conference, quote, "I think it is critical what you, the Bitcoin community, are doing for our country, because you're protecting freedom, the Bill of Rights, you're protecting value, you're protecting retirements for people who want to save and retire someday and have something of value. And you are learning," that's a rookie move, phone not on silent, and I'm using it to read. "You're protecting value, you're protecting retirements for people who want to save and retire someday and have something of value. And you are learning of new creative ways to provide services around this store of value." So I think that is really kind of where Bitcoin stands today, as a beacon on the hill, a light on the hill, a city upon the hill to which to strive. And just like I am, you know, more attached to kind of like classical liberal ideas, the ideas espoused in documents like the Bill of Rights and the US Constitution, uh, than I am the, say, US as a country or nation. I am more attached to kind of like the ideas and values espoused by Bitcoin than I am to Bitcoin as the implementation of the the goals that it's striving for. Its product is financial
Yeah.
free. If its product is financial freedom,
Well, that's
and
like what Joe Rogan had something to say, like in one of his stand-ups a long time ago, that so many people are familiar with. He's like, for like 100 and what year is it? 2021. The Constitution was written in what year?
the U.S. Constitution,
Yeah.
it was signed in 1776, I believe.
So for the last 250 years, people have been going off of a paper that was written with a feather in an oil light, and that nothing has changed. And since 2010, Bitcoin has been the one that's challenged that whole thing. So what you're saying is, I mean, it's a great philosophy to go by. What was it, the senator in Wyoming you mentioned, or
Yes, a
yeah,
Bitcoin friendly senator.
yeah, I mean, that's great. And they've also implemented a lot of great laws. The United States works in a very interesting way, like as a full nation, for people who are familiar with laws in America, there's state laws and then there's federal laws. So a lot of these states like New Jersey, New York, and Wyoming, and I think even Texas, they've implemented a lot of crypto friendly laws that have helped bootstrap the adoption for Bitcoin and furthermore other cryptocurrencies as well in the future, which is great. I'm proud to be an American in that case.
I wanted to make a correction. So in 1776, on July 4th, I believe the Declaration of Independence was signed. And in 1789, the US Constitution went into effect. Rather, it was ratified.
Roughly still 240 years.
Yeah.
A
So
long time ago.
Lummis was on the panel at Bitcoin 2021. And
Who?
Senator Lummis of
Oh,
Wyoming, along with Davidson.
cool.
And so they had a long conversation, and they talked a lot about the U.S. values, the values on which the country was founded, and how they actually align with the values espoused by Bitcoin. So that was an interesting discussion in which I think what we did see was the Republican Party actually being more aligned with Bitcoin values in some ways, or Bitcoin as a technology, than perhaps their counterparts. However, I do think that views by individuals in our halls of government are not divided along party lines. I think that it's far more multitudinous on each side of the aisle, what people believe and think. But it was interesting to note that pretty much the politicians who spoke at Bitcoin 2021, Ron Paul, the mayor, Matthew Suarez, Representative Davidson, and Representative Lummis of Ohio and Wyoming, respectively, were of that party affiliation. That's just a note.
Was Marco Rubio there?
He did. I, however, missed the lawyer panel. I had other places to be during the lawyer panel.
I felt like he would have been a perfect fit for this government panel. He's a senator of Florida.
Oh, Rubio.
Still,
yeah, I was confused.
Yeah,
I was
Marco
thinking,
Rubio.
Something else. However, Rubio was not there. Yeah, Rubio is probably going to be there next year. He's probably like
should be there next year. Should be
yeah.
there every
Oh
year.
yeah, it's the biggest conference. It's massive. I mean, come on, that's a wide open potential kind of electoral.
Totally, yeah,
base.
absolutely. I think it's considered to be the largest Bitcoin event in the world.
I think it's the largest like event in the world, other than like some massive concert. It's got to be the largest conference on the planet. It's the biggest industry conference on the planet in 2021. Now, in person, particularly. While you're looking up what you're looking up, I'll read a quote that Lummis also said at the conference. It's my personal feeling that banking is really worried about having their business model changed so dramatically by Bitcoin. And when we're getting into the unknown and we think it's going to change our livelihoods, our existence, our business model that we've been comfortable with, we would also probably react in fear. What we need to do is work with the banks to help them understand how significantly Bitcoin can advance their ability to do same-day settlements, to do more direct settlements, and make their banking lives more efficient and reduce their risk. But in addition, for the unbanked, just think, if you have a cell phone, you can be your own banker. And that's what Bitcoin does for the unbanked communities. People on Indian reservations, people in poor neighborhoods. If they are not banked, they can be their own banker using their cell phone. And that is one of the great egalitarian, wonderful things about Bitcoin that I'm so excited about.
There's one thing to this. I 100% agree with what you're saying. But again, there's this big knowledge gap with wallets, for example, because there's so many centralized providers. People are like, hey, I get to be my own bank if I have a Coinbase app. Not really. Like you're still subject to a lot of fees and a lot of taxes that come with it. And that is, in my opinion, the opposite of financial freedom. However, if you use something like Mycelium or what's that other one? Will Pangman started it back in like 2014. I can't remember. It's now called Edge Wallet. These are all like fully decentralized Bitcoin wallets. And
formerly Airbits.
Yeah. Formerly Airbits, now Edge. These are great. These are great wallets for people to use to actually benefit from the financial freedom. But then you also have to take what people call the old school route, and whether go on local Bitcoins and sell your Bitcoin peer-to-peer, or, find a friend that's going to sell it to you for spot price. There's a lot of small little like technical details that people will learn in the future once they experience it. But I guess for now, like the solutions we have are okay. But there are better ones out there that people should be more aware of when it comes to being your own bank on that topic.
Tell me about the ongoing lightning and thunderstorm.
It's rainy season here where I'm at.
How's that going?
It's okay. It reminds me of like back home in Atlanta. It used to rain and thunderstorm every day for like 30, 45 minutes. And then you could then just see the water levitate from the ground and you're just then walking in water, aka humidity. Yeah, it's rainy season right now in Southeast Asia. It's August 27th, August, September, October. It'll probably end in maybe 2-3 weeks, hopefully. Change this back to, but yeah, rainy season over here. Can't wait till it's over. Can't wait for sunshines and rainbows over here on this side of the world.
Ashton, I think that's a wrap.
Cool, man.
We've been honored to have on the inaugural episode of the Gold Silver Bitcoin show, which has been like 10 years in development, Ashton Wolfe, founder of MohrWolfe, a leading blockchain communications firm. Thanks for joining us, Ashton.